Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a Hangman app. This is a game where the user tries to guess a word one letter at a time, and they only have a certain number of guesses to do so. So we'll start by guessing O, and that's not in the word. And if I do A, that is in the word, and notice that at the bottom there I now have underscore A underscore, so I know that A is in the second position. Now R is not in the word, T is in the word, and it's at the end, B is not in the word, and C is in the word, and it was capped. So the game is over and it resets. So let's get started. I've opened up a new program here. I called it Hangman, and let's start designing our user interface. The first thing we need is a label to tell the user to enter a letter. So I will take label, plop it onto the screen, and then I go under the properties for the label, and down where it says text, I change that from text to label 1 to enter a letter. And if I click over here, it updates on my screen. The next thing I need is a text box for the user to type in their guess for the letter. So I will get this text box down here and drag it on. The only thing we need to change here is the hint. That's what appears in light gray text in the background of the box so the user knows what to put in. Currently it says hint for text box 1. You can't actually see that on the screen, but it will appear on the phone. So I'm going to change it from that to just letter so the user knows that that's where the letter goes. Next, I need a submit button so that the user can click that once they've entered in their letter, and the button is the first one here at the top. To change the text from text for button 1 to something more applicable like submit, I will go under its properties where it says text, and instead of text for button 1, I'll make it submit. The other thing I need is a few more labels. The first label we'll need will be for showing their progress that they've made in the word so far. So we'll start off just as a blank line of underscores, and then we'll fill it in with letters as they guess correctly. So for now, I'm just going to drag this label down here, and we can just keep it as text for label 2 because what we put in the label will depend on the size of the word that's generated. Because if it's a longer word, we're going to need more underscores, and we don't know that yet. So we're just going to leave it as text for label 2, and we'll fix that in the code. One thing I will change is the name of the label because as we're doing the coding, we'll have a lot of different labels, and it will be helpful to remember which one is which instead of trying to guess which label was label 2. So I'm going to rename what it's called by clicking the rename button here, and I'm going to call this progress because this will show how much progress they have made in uncovering the word. Okay, so that doesn't change what's on the screen, but it changes what our label is called. I need 2 more labels. One will say guesses left, and then below that I'll have one more label showing how many guesses they actually do have left. So I'll bring down this label here, and this will be the one that says guesses left, so I'll change the text. And then I need another one for the guesses left. And I will make this start off as 8 because we'll let the user have 8 guesses. If you want, you can make this bigger or smaller depending on how difficult you think it will be to guess your words, but I think 8 is a good one to start with. And similarly, I'm going to change the name of this label so that once we're in the blocks, we'll be able to easily figure out which label needs to be changed. So I will rename this one to guesses left. We also need a notifier, which is just a pop-up that will show the user whether they got it right or wrong. So go ahead and drag that onto your screen as well. Awesome, so let's get to the coding. We'll need to define a few variables here. First of all, we'll need a variable to store a list of all the different words we could possibly choose from because we want to make sure we have enough words that we can randomly pick so that it's not always the same word that comes up in Hangman, so it's always exciting to play. So to do that, first I need to initialize the variable, which means to create it. So I'll go down to variables here and pick the first one, which says initialize global name to. The name part shows the name of the variable. So I'm going to make it more descriptive and call it words. And we need to make a list. So I'm going to go under lists for that. And I want the second one, which says make a list. Now all you need to do is add in whatever words you would like to be included in your Hangman game. To put in those words, you're going to use a text block, so I'll go here to text and pick the first one and drag that into one of the slots here. You can make whatever you want to be your words as long as they're entirely lowercase, and that's important and you'll see why later. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm just going to keep it at 3, but I encourage you to make some more words here. So I'll do book and cat. And to add more, you click on this blue gear here and drag item here. And that opens up a new slot for another word. And app. Okay, so this is our list of words. Now we need to have a variable that actually represents what word is being used in this game. So I'm going to initialize another variable, so I'll need to get that initialize block again. And instead of just name, I'm going to call it word. Okay, now right now we don't actually know what the word is going to be yet, so I'm just going to leave that as blank text for now, and you can do that just by dragging this empty one. Alright, another important variable that we'll need is the number of guesses the user has left. So we'll get another variable for that I will call guesses left. And that will start off at 8 because that's the number of guesses I've given the user. If you made your number of guesses something else, make sure you account for that. So you're going to go under math and click the first number there and change it from 0 to however many guesses you're allowing your user. So I'll make mine 8. We'll need another numerical variable to store the number of correct letters that they've uncovered so far, because we need to know when to end the game, and we end the game once they've uncovered all of the letters. So we'll need to keep track of that as well. I'm actually just going to copy and paste this entire code block because it's going to be very similar. So to do that, you hit Control-C if you're on Windows, or Command-C if you're on a Mac, and then Control-V or Command-V to paste it. And I will change it from guesses left to letters revealed. And that will start at 0 because they haven't revealed any letters in the beginning. What we're going to do next is to create a procedure. And a procedure is a process that we expect that we'll need to use multiple times in our code. And I think that it would be helpful to have a procedure that allows us to carry out whatever things we need to do when we make a new question. So this will be useful both when we're opening the screen for the first time and if we need to restart the game, which would occur either if the user guesses the entire word or if they run out of guesses. So to define a procedure, I'm going to go to procedures here and click the first one that says to procedure do. This right here is the name of our procedure, so I will call it new question. And the code that goes in here is what will happen in our procedure. The first thing that we need to do is to make sure we have that randomly chosen word, because currently our word is just an empty piece of text. So we'll need to set our word, so I'll mouse over word and click the set global word to, and I'll drag that here. We need to pick a random item from our list of words, and that will be a list block, so I'll go to lists and pick the pick a random item list block, and I'll snap that in here. This needs to be which list we're getting the random item from, and that list is words, because words has all of our possible words we could be choosing from. So I'll mouse over words and choose get global words and put that here. The other thing we need to do when we make a new question is to make sure we accurately update those underscores that were in our progress. If you remember on the screen, we have this label that currently says text for label 2, and that's where it starts off as entirely underscores, which looks like a blank, and then we gradually fill in letters as they play the game. So depending on the size of our word, we're going to have a different number of underscores. If it's 2 letters, we'll have 2 underscores. If it's 8 letters, we'll have 8 underscores. So we'll need to do that here. And to do that, we're going to need to use a for loop. And a for loop is a way of doing something a certain number of times and repeating the same process of code over and over. So to get a for loop, I'm going to go under Control and choose the second one here, which says for each number from to by. And let's pull this down here. Now what this does is it has a sort of counter variable. And this counter variable, each time we go through the for loop, its value is going to be increased by whatever this value is. And generally, we usually just keep it at 1 because that means that number will, in this case, start off at 1, and then go to 2, and then 3, and then 4, and it will stop at 5. Now this is useful to us because that means that this for loop will run exactly 5 times. So we can do a certain process of code 5 times. And in this case, what we want to be repeating over and over is to add a new underscore to our label. So as many letters as there are in our word, we'll keep adding one more underscore to that label. We do want to start at 1, but we don't always want to end at 5. That would be if all of our words had 5 letters. Instead, we want to get the length of the word. So I'm going to just get rid of this by hitting backspace. And we need to find the number of letters in the word. And we can do that with a text block. So I'll go under text and get this one which says length. And that returns the number of letters in our word. So let's pull that down. And this is asking length of what? Well, that's just the length of our word. So I will get the word variable and put that here. Now, every time we go through the for loop, like I said, we're adding another underscore to our label. And this is where we are glad that we gave it a more descriptive name because we know that progress is the label that we're changing. So I'll click on progress. And I want the setProgress.text to block because that allows us to change the text that's in that label. So I'll pull that here. And what we want to set it to is whatever was in the label before plus an additional underscore. And that's important because once we've already added a few underscores, we want to make sure we take all of those and then stick on another underscore. I'm going to need to join text here, so that's a block under text. And we want the join block, which is the second one. So this allows us to join two pieces of text. The first thing we want to join is what's already in that label. So to do that, we'll go to progress and choose progress.text. And keep in mind, this is different from the block we just used. You can tell it's different because it's light green and it doesn't say set. But also, this is just getting what's in the text instead of changing it. So we'll get that and put it here. And then we're going to be joining that and a piece of text with another underscore. So let's go to text and choose our text thing up here and put an underscore in it. Next, we need to update our letters revealed variable to 0 because now that we have a new word, they haven't revealed any letters for this word yet. So I'm going to get the set letters revealed block and I'm going to set it to 0. So that's under math and 0. Now I also need to set guesses left to 8 because now that we're on a new word, we're giving them all of the possible guesses. So I'll get guesses left and get 8. I need to update my label that showed guesses left because just because we're changing the variable doesn't mean the screen knows to actually update that. So I need to access my guesses left label and I will choose set guesses left.text too. So we'll pull that down and say set guesses left.text to, and then we need to get our guesses left variable. One other thing we need to change here is we want to make sure that our progress label starts off blank. Otherwise, we'll just be adding more underscores onto whatever it was in the previous round. So I'm going to go ahead and get my progress label and then choose set progress.text. Put this at the top here and change it to a blank text. Cool, so that's our procedure, but creating this procedure by itself doesn't actually do anything. We need to make sure that we're calling this procedure at the appropriate times. And one time when we'll want to call this procedure is when our screen initializes, because when we open the screen for the first time, we'll have to go through this whole process of picking a word and updating it on the screen. So to do that, we're going to go under screen 1 and choose when screen1.initialize, meaning when the screen opens. And you can just pull that here. And to call the procedure, that will be a procedures block, and it's this one that says call new question. So now we need to deal with when the user actually guesses the letter. And this is going to be a little complicated, so I recommend that if you don't understand anything, just pause the video and see if you can figure it out for yourself so you can make sure you're really maximizing your understanding here. So first of all, we made that submit button, and that allows us to start this whole process of checking their letter once they have submitted it. So I'm going to get my button and then choose when button 1.click because that allows us to execute a certain block of code when the user clicks that submit button. And I'll pull that here. Now what we're going to want to do is we have that notifier that appears. And it will be a lot easier if instead of calling the notifier individually in these different cases, like calling the notifier if they get it right, calling the notifier if they get it wrong, or if they guess the word, or if they ran out of guesses, it would be a lot easier if we just have a variable that stores whatever message we're going to want to say. And then at the end, we can just show that message in our notifier, and that will make the code a little bit simpler. That message is going to be stored in a local variable. Previously, we've only worked with global variables, which can be used anywhere in the program. But since this message is only really useful in this one block, once the user has clicked the button, it only needs to be a local variable. So I'm going to go under Variables and choose Initialize Local Name To. Note that there's a slight difference between this one and the one below. This one has little dimples on the top and bottom, while this one has a puzzle piece sticking to the left. Make sure you get the first one because only that one will fit in this block. So we'll pull this down. Although this is a local rather than global variable, it still has some similarities. We need to give it a variable name just like we did before. So I'm going to call this alert. And at the very beginning, we don't know what our alert is going to be because we don't know if they've gotten it right or wrong or what. So we'll just start off as a blank piece of text. The first thing we want to check for is if they've already entered this letter before. And the way we can tell that is by seeing if our text in the progress label already contains that letter, because that means we've already revealed it. So because we're checking for a condition, let's get an if statement. That's under control, and it's the first one here, and just bring that here. So we need to check to see if the progress box contains that letter. So let's go to text and get the contains block, which is right here, and bring it here. We need to tell it both the text and the piece that we're looking for inside of that text. The text is just the text inside of our progress label. So let's go to progress and get the text. That's right here. The piece that we're looking for is the letter, and the letter is whatever the user put in the text box. So let's go to text box and get text, which is here. So if they already put in that letter, then we need to set the alert appropriately. So let's get alert and choose set alert to, and then I'll get a text box, and I'll just make that you already guessed that letter. Another possibility is if their letter that they chose was in the word and they haven't already guessed it. And so we're going to need to bring an elif clause, which is a way of checking for another condition, but it's only true if the previous if statement was false. And so let's go ahead and click on this and drag else if over. Now, because this already excludes any of the cases that happened with the if statement, we don't need to check to see if they've already guessed this letter before. We can just check to see if it's in the word that they're trying to get. So that will be another contains block. Let's go ahead and copy and paste this one. And we will want to keep the text box 1.text because that's the letter that we're still searching for. But instead of looking at the text in progress, we want to instead look at the word. So I'll delete this and instead get the word. Now that we know that their letter was in our word, we need to figure out exactly where in the word it appears, because we need to make sure that we're updating those underscores so they know where the letter was, because that will give them some clues into what the word is. So for that, we're going to need to use another for loop. So let's pull down another for loop, and this is going to be the for each number from 1 to 5 by 1. We need to use a for loop here to loop over every letter in our word and to see if that was the place where the letter occurred. And a for loop is also important because this will allow us to catch letters that appear multiple times. So for example, in book, I have 2 O's, and if the user guesses an O, we need to make sure that we reveal both of those O's and not just one. So first of all, again, we don't want to just go to 5. We want to go to whatever length the word was. So I'm going to delete this, and we already have that block of code here. So I'm just going to copy and paste where it says length and drag it up here. All right, so for every letter that we go through, we need to check to see if that letter is equal to the letter that the user put in. So that will actually be another if statement. So I'll go to control and choose if, and put that here. And we'll need to use an equal sign to see if the letter that they put in and the letter in the word are equal. So let's go to logic for that and get the equal sign. So first of all, I will put in textbox1.text because that is the letter that they put in. So I'm going to copy and paste this here. Now, it's not super straightforward how to get the letter at the number position from the string. And again, because number here is going to take on all the values from 1 to the length of the word, we can use those to index into our word. And what that means is, for example, in book, B will be represented by the number 1, the first O will be represented by 2, this O will be 3, and this K will be 4. So as we go through the for loop, even though our variable here is just taking on numbers, those will be able to equate to actual letters. You'll see how this works in a second. We're going to need to get a text blocks here in order to get at the right position. So let's go to text and choose down at the bottom segment. And segment just means a piece of text. So let's get this and stick it in here. Now we need to tell it 3 things. First of all, we need to tell it which text this segment is coming from. And that text will just be our word. So I'm going to copy and paste this block and put that here. The start of the segment will just be number, because number is going to take on those values where the letters could be. So I'll choose get number. And the length is 1, because we're just looking at one letter here. So I'm going to copy and paste this one. If that letter in the word is equal to the letter that they put in, that's a match. So we need to make sure that we are updating those underscores, which is in our progress label. So I'm going to go to progress and we'll need to set the text, so I'll choose set progress.text to. Alright, and we'll need to do a few things here. So currently, progress is showing whatever combination of letters and underscores that we have. And what we need to do is just replace the underscore at this position with the letter that has been revealed, but to keep the other things that have remained the same. So whatever underscores and letters have already been revealed, we need to make sure those stay the same. So we'll need to kind of split the current text that's in here into a few different pieces and then piece them back together. To piece them back together, I'll need a join block, so I'll go to text and choose join at the top and pull that here. And we need to join 3 things. We need to join all of the text that came before this letter, the letter itself, and all the text that came after the letter. So that's 3 things, so I'll need to add a third component here, which I could do by clicking on the gear and pulling down string. Let's do the middle one first because that's the easiest. That's just the actual letter, and we can get that through textbox1.text. So I'll copy and paste this and put it in the middle. Now to get the first thing, we're again going to need to segment the text. So I will just copy and paste this block here. But we don't want our text to be get global word. So I'll delete that, and this is also off. So I'm going to delete all of these things here. The text that we're segmenting from is not the word, because if we segment it from the word, we'll end up revealing the entire word. Instead, we want to get a segment from what's currently in the progress label. So I'll go to progress and get progress.text, because that will give us the text in there. The start is going to just be 1, because we are looking at the first part of the text. So I'll get this 1 here and paste it and drag it there. The length of this text is going to be the value of number minus 1. And that's because if we look at, for example, book, let's say that the user found the letter K. And we need to make sure that we're getting those 3 letters before it. Now, if the user found the letter K, that means that number is going to be 4, because that's at the 4th position in our word. That means that the length of the letters that come before is 3 because it's B-O-O. So it will be number minus 1. That involves subtraction, so I'll get the subtraction block and stick it in length. And the first thing there will be number, so I'll mouse over this and get number. And we're subtracting 1 from it. So I will copy and paste that. Now we need to get all of the characters that came after that letter. So again, we'll need segment. I will copy and paste this. We are going to be segmenting from progress, but instead of starting at 1, we need to get all the stuff that came after the number. So I'm just going to delete this and instead get plus. So let's get that. And this is going to be number +1, which kind of makes sense because all the stuff before ends at the position number -1. The actual letter itself will be at the position number, and then everything from there onwards will be number +1. So I'll just copy this here, and it will be +1, so I'll copy and paste this. Now we need to change the length of this because this is the number -1, which is left over from here. We are going to use subtraction, but instead of number -1, we're going to get the length of the total word and subtract from that the number. And let's look at an example here. So if we go back to book, and let's say that the person had instead found the B. Then number will be 1 because B is at the first position, and the total length of our word will be 4. So 4 minus 1 is 3, and 3 represents the OOK, or maybe underscore, 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 depending on how much progress they made, and that works for us. So let's go back here, and I'm going to get rid of this one, and scooch this one to the second spot, and this one is going to be the length of the word, and that's just a block we have over here, so I'll copy and paste this. Because this whole section here represents once they got a letter right, in this case, we need to add 1 to the count of the number of letters that they've revealed. So let's go to variables and get sets because we'll be setting that variable's value and change this to letters revealed. To add 1 to the variable, what we need to do is to set the value of letters revealed to what it was before plus 1. So that will be addition, so I'll go to math and get plus. The first thing here will be the value of letters revealed, so I'll go to variables and choose get and make this letters revealed, and then plus 1, and there's a plus 1 right here, so I'll just copy paste this. Now we need to make sure that because this is the case where the user found a letter, we need to make sure that we're updating what our alert was. And as a reminder, alert was this local variable we're using here that will store whatever message appears in our pop-up window. So let's scroll down here, and we're going to set the value of our alert variable. So we'll go to variables and get set. And this is going to go after the for loop, because we don't need to do it every single time they get a letter right, but this is inside of this if statement that checked to see if their letter was contained in the word. So we know that they got something right here. Alright, so then let's change this to alert and get a text box. And I'm going to make this say your letter was in the word. Now we need to set the alert if their letter wasn't in the word. So this is where we're going to need an else clause, and an else clause covers all the cases that were not covered by the if statement, and that would mean that their letter was not in the word. Because this if statement is so large, you might need to zoom out a bit, and then click on this gear here, make sure this is the outer if statement that you're looking at, and then drag this else statement in here. Okay, and now I can zoom back in. So that has opened up an else here, and this is if their letter was not in the word. So in that case, we need to appropriately set the alert, so I'm going to copy and paste this and change it to your letter was not in the word, and then change this to sorry. Now the next thing we need to do is to subtract 1 from their guesses left, because since they've guessed this letter, they now have 1 fewer guesses. So I'm going to set my guesses variable and put this in the else statement after setting the alert. Change this to guesses left, and then I'm going to be subtracting 1 from what it was before. So I'll go to subtraction, and the first thing that will go in there is the current value of guesses left. So I will get the get block and change this to guesses left, and then it will be -1 because they have 1 fewer guess left. Now we need to make sure that the label that holds guesses left is updating to show the new value of guesses left. So let's go to the guesses left label and choose the text one. So set guesses left.text2, and that will just be get guesses left. So I'll copy and paste this block and put that there. So we've covered the cases for the alert where they had the letter in the word or they didn't have the letter in the word, but we also need to consider the cases where they ran out of guesses or they got the entire word correct. So let's first look at if they got the entire word correct. We know if that's true if their letters revealed is equal to the length of the word, because that means that they've revealed every single letter. So let's get another if statement. I'll go to Control and choose this one here and put that there. And we'll need an equals, and this has to do with math and numbers, so I'll choose that one and use this. The first thing that we'll need is letters revealed. I see that up here, so I'll copy and paste this and bring it down. And we need to see if that's equal to the length of our word. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so I can see that because it was used over here. So I'll copy and paste this. By the way, anytime I'm copying and pasting things, it's also probably possible for you to get them in built-in blocks, but I just find it easier. If the letters revealed is equal to the length of the word, that means they won the game, so we want to appropriately set the alert. I'll copy and paste this alert block and change this to "You got the word." And then we probably also want to tell them what the word actually was, just to make sure they know. So I'll say the word was, and then we'll need to join this text to what the word actually is. So I'll get a join block here and put this one first, and then the second will be the word. So I'll copy and paste this and put that there. Okay, so now we need to look at the case where they ran out of guesses. So let's get another if statement. And they ran out of guesses if guesses left is equal to 0. So I'll go under math again. And the first thing that we'll look at is the value of guesses left. So I'll copy and paste this. And then we need to check if that's equal to 0. So I will go to math and choose 0. If that's the case, we want to set our alert to "You ran out of guesses." So I'll copy and paste this and put that there and make this "You ran out of guesses." And then we'll still tell them what the word was. So we've been setting this alert the whole time, but that doesn't actually make it come up on the screen. It only saves the message so that we can put it on the screen later. So now we need to actually use this notifier pop-up. So let's click on notifier 1 and choose Show Message Dialog, and make sure you get the Show Message Dialog. And we'll put this down at the bottom here. Now our message will be this alert variable that we've been keeping track of for this whole thing. So let's go to variables and choose get, and this will be get alert. Our title can just be something along the lines of alert, so let's go to text and we can type that in. And then our button text can just be okay. So I will type that here. Alright, the last thing we need to cover is we need to reset our screen if they guess it correctly, they guess the entire word, or if they ran out of guesses. Because in that case, we're starting a new game with a new word, and this is where our procedure is going to come in handy, because we had made this procedure new question that was in charge of resetting everything on the screen once we have a new question ready. So we will add code to each of these if statements if they got it all right or if they ran out of guesses to call our new question procedure. So I'll go under procedures and choose the call one, and I will put it after that, and I will copy and paste it and also put it after here. So congratulations, go ahead and test it out and have fun playing your Hangman game. I hope you learned something. If you want to play around with this a little bit more, some additional features you could add is a way to prevent the user from typing in things that aren't letters, so like numbers, for example, or multiple letters. Another good addition would be to have a label that shows the user what letters they've guessed so far. If you learned something from this tutorial, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to get notified when I post more tutorials.